Hi there, Mick back again, and this time I continue with my series called Through the Decades, and this time we're up to 1965. This series allows me to explore the records I already have and look at the way music has progressed through the decades. So my previous one was 1955, this is 1965. Here's a top 20 of sorts. Just so everybody knows, I've been collecting records for possibly 40 plus years. So if you see something there that you don't think should be there, that's probably down to my taste, and you'll probably notice the Beatles and Stones are missing, and that's also down to my taste. So I certainly have some of those records, but wouldn't have made my 1965 top 20 looking back on it now perspective. Okay, let's go. Art Blakey and the Jazz Messengers, Free for All. On this one we have Freddie Hubbard, Chris Fuller, Wayne Shorter, Reggie Workman, and of course Art Blakey. This particular edition is on Toshiba, so it's a Japanese edition, Toshiba EMI. Now, before we had our series of classics and tone poets, this was probably the most effective way to get the Blue Note catalogue that sounded good and certainly was price efficient. This one came with a nice catalogue, so I could see what else was out there. And all the classics are there, including a couple that haven't quite made the classic series. So yeah, I certainly go between the Toshibas and the classic series, working out exactly what I need. And like a lot of these reissues, everything stays true to the original Blue Note label there. So good, and at one stage were quite cheap. In fact, cheaper than a classic or a 75 for that series, for that matter. Okay, number 19. Now this is the Superior Viaduct issue of Bert Jansch's debut album. So we're talking English folk here, certainly unique, and this sort of starts influencing Nick Drake, Donovan, Jimmy Page, and Neil Young. Key track on this for me, and probably the one that converted me to being quite interested in it, was Needle of Death. So Bert Jansch, pretty boring label, that's on Superior Viaduct. Okay, next up we have, I guess, a civil rights classic. If you're from the US, The Impressions, People Get Ready. It's on ABC Paramount, and features the, I guess, the key track here is People Get Ready, and talks about change within that atmosphere. Certainly a volatile time in the US, the mid-60s. And there's the ABC Paramount label that it comes on. These are never easy to find in Australia, so this edition probably came from the US and mail ordered in back in the day. Okay, speaking of division and a country at war and also at war with itself, Phil Oakes, I'm Not Marching Anymore, features the classic, the Draft Dodger Rag. Phil Oakes, US folk sensation. Certainly by this stage, Dylan was starting to abandon some of his folk work, but Phil Oakes was the man here. I Ain't Marching Anymore. I've already mentioned the Draft Dodger Rag, where people, come up with excuses not to go to war, and you can imagine you would too. And then there's the classic here, Here's to the State of Mississippi, on Elektra, and certainly a sign of the times. Okay, up next, more Blue Notes, and this one's Herbie Hancock with Maiden Voyage. This is a Blue Note classic series, mastered by Kevin Gray, of course. All these tracks have been written by Herbie Hancock, and of course it's on the fantabulous Blue Note label. In my opinion, you do need a couple of original Blue Notes, but if you're in it for the music and you want probably the best sounding, most available version, go the classics. Okay, how about some avant-garde sensibilities? And this one we have on ESP discs, and we have the Milford Graves Percussion Ensemble with Sonny Morgan. So we've got Milford Graves on drums, bells, gongs and shakers, and Sonny Morgan on drums and bells. You get 5 tracks, all called Nothing, but most importantly, it's on the ESP disc label. You've never heard such sounds in your life, ESP disc. This is avant-garde by all measures and contains solo percussion type sound, even though there's 2 people on it, but you get the picture. There's no other instruments on this. Certainly unique, and I'd like to think in 1965 I would have been able to maximise the opportunity of being into ESP and to that Milford Graves record. Okay, up next, more UK folk, and this is Davy Graham. Davy Graham certainly was the forefront of the UK folk scene. This is actually an Australian edition. Features some Lead Belly songs, the song Cocaine, the Jack Elliott classic, some Charles Mingus and Better Get It In Your Soul. Basically, Davy plays a dark role in making these songs dark. There we go, and it's on the Decca label. I actually need to take this to get professionally cleaned. I think it might be a good example of that. I've sort of got it going as best I can, but it's still a bit messy, so yeah, we'll have to make a bit of effort on that. Good to see it get an Australian press. 1965, it's moving things forward. Okay, more Tone Poets. And this one's Bobby Hutchison with Dialogue. Once again on the fantastic Blue Note label, featuring Andrew Hill, Sam Rivers, Joe Chambers on drum, and Richard Davis on bass. Can you ever go wrong with a Vibes record? I think not, and certainly not a Tone Poet. Fantastic jacket, part of the 4000 series, and wonderfully mastered by Kevin Gray, of course. Okay, speaking of other classics, this is Nina Simone, and this is on the Verve Request label. This one's called Pastel Blues, and we can see Nina on the inside there. Nina, of course, is known for her singing, and in particular, the track I like on this is Cinnamon. At some point in time, Cinnamon has been my favourite song of all time. I don't think it's there anymore, but it might be my favourite jazz blue song of all time. Once again, the Verve Request label is being coordinated by the sometimes maligned Chaz Kassem from Acoustic Sounds, and the mastering on this one is by Ryan Smith at Sterling Sound, giving Kevin Gray a very well-earned break. Anyway, Nina Simone, Pastel Blues. I think this is the definitive edition. I do have an original of this, and this one certainly sings and chirps better than the original does. Okay, up next, how about some maximum R&B? And it's a good time to denote that Roger Daltrey has become Sir Roger Daltrey, the latest King's birthday list. Maximum R&B, Moon's at his craziest, Townsend's rocking the lead guitar, and John Entwistle, do you get a better bass solo than what's featured in my generation? I don't think so. This one's UK, I think it's a first press, and it's on the always interesting Brunswick label. One there for everyone. Sound quality on this, look, it's good to have the vibe with this one. Being an ex-mod at some point in my life, I really need to hear the original of this. Sure, the reissues would do the trick, but fantastic album, and thanks to Sir Roger Daltrey, who, by the way, wasn't knighted for his services to music so much, but all his work with the UK Teenage Cancer Council. So good on you, Roger, for putting your fame to some broader causes. Okay. Next up, we have the Sonics. With Here Are the Sonics. Part of the great Northwest Punk. This is a Norton version. Would dearly love a reissue there of this, but Norton does do a fantastic job with all these. The key tracks on this one for mine are The Witch, Boss Hoss, Dirty Robber, Psycho, and the song that got me into them, Strychnine, which I sort of know from the Cramps. Some folks like water, some folks like wine, but I like the taste of straight strychnine. I can see it have its trippy effects, but you want to be careful with that one, guys. Anyway, am on the lookout for an original of this one. I can find one in the right copy for the right condition for the right price. Probably something I need to understand the vibe for, so worth having an original. Okay, what's happening in Australia in 1965? Well, the easy beats are happening in Australia, but I don't think anything sort of relates to my musical preferences more than the Missing Links self-titled album on Philips. This album would go on to feature somewhat on the Saints album with their cover of Wild About You. Lots of fantastic and wild R&B influenced music. Great song, and You're Driving Me Insane. But the most interesting track, and you notice I do have a bit of an avant-garde bent to my music, is Hey Tom Tars. And it's a backward masking of a couple of tracks, I think. And so it gets played backwards. Very avant-garde for Australia at the time. Missing Links. Everyone needs this. And it's on the Philips label. So nice mono there. That one is nice and clean. Okay. Next up. Okay, you've seen everything else is probably a pretty, what I would call a pretty posh sort of version. You've got your Tone Poets, you've got some nice originals there. And this is a 2-for-1 deal. And the reason why I kept this as a 2-for-1 in the top 10 is because this is how I first heard these both albums. This is bought from my teenage hometown in Rockhampton, and from a second-hand shop there for $5, and it's pretty beat up condition. $5 was quite a bit then, but I really needed to know this band. And both these albums in this 2-record set were issued in 1965. So I think by default it does count as one album, particularly in my case. Given a choice, my favourite song here would be Turn, Turn, Turn. And that's particularly from the adaptation from the book of Accessolates from the Christian Bible. But the better album is definitely Mr. Tambourine Man. I don't know if you get a better jangle pop album here, and certainly this album was one of the reasons most of my friends, and particularly the ones I was playing music with, we always preferred the Byrds over the Beatles, particularly at this point. Rubber Soul versus Mr. Tambourine Man. If you want a jangle, you've got to go the Byrds. Okay, this time we head to Japan for a pressing, and it is of Albert Ayler Trio Spiritual Unity. We have Albert Ayler on saxophone, Gary Peacock on bass, and Sonny Murray on percussion. Okay, things are definitely out on this one, and those who know me know I do like my free jazz. Why choose this Japanese version? Look, my suspicion is that this would be the best version available. Would love an original. This song, The Ghosts, and particularly means something to me, as I think it's like one of the key free jazz songs. So definitely something I need to think about. But this version sounds fantastic. It's nice and clean, and it's certainly from a master recording owned by ESP Disc. So yeah, thanks to Victor in Japan. So maybe a definitive vision. And as we head towards the top, you can see the jazz love coming through. And I don't think there was any more progressive genres in 1965 than jazz. And we don't move too far away from jazz. So what we have here is Sun Ra with Heliocentric World of Sun Ra, Volume 1. Marshall Allen's on this, Ronnie Boykin's on this, John Gilmore's on this, and Sun Ra plays bass marimba, electronic celeste, piano, timpani on Outer Nothingness. For those enjoying their cosmic equations, Sun Ra has started to take off into the world of otherness here. Once again on the ESP label, and definitely one of Sun Ra's key discs. Favourite track would have to be the 7-minute 30 classic, The Cosmos. Definitely one of the more inventive albums for 1965, and certainly this is where music's changing and comes up in, I guess, other circumstances as people in Europe start to understand the power of jazz and the avant-garde. Okay, keep going through. Now the next one is John Fay's The Transfiguration of Blind Joe Death. Now this was originally issued as a private version in 1965. This version I have is from a little bit later, but I actually prefer the cover of this, and obviously to find a 1965 original John Fay is difficult to acquire. People do call him John Fahey, and I guess that's how I see his name as well, but it's often commonly pronounced Fay. What you do get in a Tacoma package, which is amazing for 1965, because I'm in Santa Monica, California, you get some fantastic artwork on the Tacoma label there. And more importantly, I think this is fantastic, you get notes to the Transfiguration of John Fay. And can you dive more further into a solo guitar album that is bluegrass, but it's bluegrass, it's a little bit out there, then go through a booklet. It takes you right back to 1965. And not that I was alive in 1965, but that's part of the transformative power of music, isn't it? Okay. For sure, people are hoping he would come up at some point. Dylan's gone electric. It's one of his big ones. It's one of those albums everybody needs. I have about 3 or 4 versions of this. I've got the Mo-Fi, got the Aussie First Press, I've got a mono, and I've also got a stereo. But I think this version, the mono version, I think this one is the best one. Desolation Road, just like Tom Thumb's Blues, Queen Jane approximately, Tombstone Blues, and Like a Rolling Stone. Al Cooper comes into the band on organ. Dylan goes electric. And there we go. There's the mono-ness of Sir Bob. He's definitely not folk at this stage. That's what we got the Phil Oakes and the Davy Graham and the Burt Chance for. Bob Dylan's launched into what would be part Americana, part rock. Certainly a million miles ahead of the Beatles and Stones for mine at the time. Okay, we'll stay with the US, and here we are. The legendary Son House, father of the folk blues. One of my all-time favourite blues album, features John the Revelator, Death Letter, Preachin' Blues, Levy Can't Moan. Weirdly enough for me, this is a US promo on the Columbian label. It's a radio station copy, so not for resale. Oh gee, broke the rules there. Certainly, if you like the blues and done minimalistically and with real passion, this is an album to have. Definitely my top 10 all-time favourite blues album. Okay, we're down to the top 2 and more jazz. So Fire Music by Archie Shepp. Archie Shepp is joined on this with Marion Brown on alto sax, Reggie Johnson on bass, Joe Chambers on drums. Second time we've had Joe on drums during the countdown. We get 5 tracks, 3 of which Shepp's originals. This is of course on Impulse, and this was definitely the new wave of jazz. Some nice words there from Leroy Jones. And Fire Music, reflecting its title. This is the beginning of the new wave, the beginning and maybe the peak of the new thing. Okay, so that was, as I said, on the Impulse label. Nice copy there. And certainly leading the way with sound in 1965. And for number 1, could there be any other? A Love Supreme by John Coltrane. For mine, Coltrane's peak, out but not too out. Some minor vocals there. You realise his spirituality with this album and where that sits with him. And I don't think a lot of people would necessarily associate his personal life with being spiritual, but I think they do go together. It's just that Coltrane put them together in his own particular way. And there's a lovely poem there from Coltrane. This is a stereo version, and I'm pretty sure it comes down to being a first press or one of the first presses. There's a lot of conjecture online which one is, which one isn't. Certainly an album I needed to have the first press of, and this would be my favourite Coltrane album and definitely my top 10 albums of all time. Okay, thanks everyone for the journey there, and hope you enjoyed my rundown of 1965. Okay, see everyone soon.